It's June 1st, 2011. Miami, Florida, the Magic City. It's the kind of morning where the sun's already angry by 9 o'clock and the palm trees ain't moving because there ain't a breath of wind to push them. The city's humming along the way it always does. Traffic on the causeway. Coffee shops filling up. People rushing to work with their windows down and their AC blasting. Yeah, at the same time. A man named Camilo Salazar, 43 years old, interior designer, former world champion ultimate frisbee player, husband, father of a 3-week-old baby girl. He pulls up to his wife's office in Coconut Grove. He's got little Skylar in the car seat. She needs to nurse. He carries her inside, hands her to his wife Daisy, leans in and says 3 words. See you soon. Then he walks back to his white Chevrolet Trailblazer, gets in, and pulls away. And folks, that's it. That's the last time that Daisy Holcomb ever sees her husband alive. The last time she will ever hear his voice. The last time she will ever feel his presence in her room. See you soon. 3 words that were supposed to mean nothing. 3 words that now mean everything. Because Camilo Salazar is not coming home. Not tonight. And not ever. And what happened to him between that parking lot and the edge of the Florida Everglades is so freaking brutal. So calculated, so deeply personal, that when investigators finally piece it all together, they'll say it has all of the elements of a bad Hollywood movie. But y'all, this ain't a movie. This is real. And the man behind it, hell, he was hiding in plain sight for 7 years.
Down a dirt road where the pines grow tall. Got a tale tonight that'll chill us all. Pull up a chair by the firelight glow. There's secrets in the South that the old folks know. It's DJ Southern storytelling, come on in.
Hey, listen up. Y'all need to settle in. Because this story, wow, this one's got layers. And this damn sure ain't a simple story, y'all. This is a story about love. But the wrong kind of love. The kind that starts as a spark, and ends as a wildfire. That burns everything and everyone it touches. It's a story about money, about pride, about a man so damn consumed by rage and wounded ego that he reached across state lines and international borders to make sure another man suffered in the worst way imaginable. And it's a story also about a woman caught in the middle. A wife, a mother, a widow, left holding a 3-week-old baby and a lifetime of questions that no answer will ever make okay. This is the story of Camilo Salazar. And it is strange. It is dark. Let me tell you a little bit about Camilo. Because before he was a headline, before he was ever a case number, before he was a name on a courtroom docket, hey, he was a person. A real living, breathing person with a smile that lit up a room. Camilo Salazar came to Miami from Colombia as a young man. His family immigrated. Chased that American dream the way so many families do. With hope in their hearts and not much else in their pockets. And Camilo grabbed that dream with both hands and ran with it. You see, he became an interior designer. He built a career. He built a great reputation. Built a life in Coconut Grove, one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in all of Miami, where the banyan trees drape over the streets like cathedral ceilings, and the houses have that old Florida charm that money just can't buy. And his sister, Carolina, described as someone who was always smiling, always had something funny to say. The kind of man who walked into a room and made it better just by being there. He had this gap-toothed grin that was unmistakable. The kind of smile you remember. And he was an athlete, not just any athlete, a former world champion and ultimate frisbee. The man had discipline, drive, passion. He poured himself into everything that he did. And by 2011, Camilo seemed to have it all. He married Daisy Holcomb, and she ended up keeping her maiden name. A beautiful, smart woman who adored him. They just welcomed their baby girl, Skylar, into the world. Just 3 weeks old, brand new. That perfect yet terrifying, miraculous stage where everything feels fragile and precious and full of possibility. He also had another daughter from a previous relationship. He was a man with roots, a man with people who loved him, a man with a future that looked bright from every angle. But Camilo, he had a secret. And that secret had a name. No, her name was Jenny Marin. See, Jenny was an old flame. Someone from Camilo's past who'd never quite become the past. They'd been involved years before. It was a relationship that had supposedly ended when Jenny married another man. A wealthy man and a powerful man. A man named Manuel Manny Marin. Now listen, Manny Marin he wasn't just any businessman. You see, he was the co-founder of Presidente Supermarkets. It's one of the fastest growing Hispanic grocery chains in the entire country. And folks, we're talking real money, real influence. The kind of man who moved through Miami like he owned it. Because in a lot of ways, he did. Jenny married Manny, had a life with him. But somewhere along the way, and nobody knows exactly when, she and Camilo reconnected. The old flame reignited. What started as stolen glances, became stolen hours. Became a full-blown affair that was burning hot behind closed doors while both of them smiled for their families in public. Listen, I ain't here to judge Camilo, but what he did was wrong. There is no question about it. Carrying on with a married woman while his own wife was at home nursing their newborn baby, that's straight up betrayal. That's a wound. And we know Daisy deserved better. But here's what I really need you to understand. In this country, when someone cheats, you get a divorce. You get a lawyer, you get angry, you cry, you heal, but you move on. You damn sure don't do what Manny Marin did. Now, at some point, Manny found out. And the details exactly how are really murky, kind of like our swampy black water here in Florida. But what's clear is that he confronted Camilo and Jenny at a South Florida cafe, face to face, man to man, except, folks, it wasn't a conversation. It was a declaration of war. After the confrontation, Jenny demanded a divorce. She refused to reconcile with Manny. And that refusal, wow, that was the match that lit the fuse. You see, Manny Marin was a man of pride, of machismo, of control. In his world, you didn't get to humiliate him. You didn't get to take his wife and walk away smiling. You didn't get to win. And if his wife was leaving him for another man, then that man was going to pay. No, not with money. No, not with embarrassment, with his wife. Now back to the morning of June 1st. And it starts normal. Camilo drops Skylar off at Daisy's office around 10:10 a.m. Says, see you soon. Walks to his car, gets in, and drives away. And y'all, then he vanishes. Now, you see, what happened next, what we know from the investigation and the trials that followed, is this. Camilo was intercepted, taken, snatched off the street in broad daylight by men who were waiting for him. Professional men, trained men, men who knew exactly what they were doing. Now, two of them, Roberto, Isaac, and Ariel Gondula, grabbed Camilo and forced him into his own vehicle. Isaac was an associate of a former Olympic wrestler named Alexis Villa Perdomo. Gondula was a former MMA fighter who'd been recruited for the job. Now, these weren't street thugs. These were athletes, fighters, men with physical ability to overpower almost anyone. Camilo didn't stand a damn chance. They drove him out of the city, away from the palm trees and the coffee shops and the beautiful neighborhoods, away from his wife and his baby and his life. They drove him toward the edge of the Everglades, that vast, ancient swamp that stretches across southern Florida, well, like a world unto itself. A place where things do disappear. A place where the sawgrass and the water and the silence swallow everything. Now, that same afternoon, just hours after Camilo said goodbye to his wife, a lieutenant named Angelo Andrade was patrolling a remote area near Okeechobee Road in northwest 138th Avenue. You see, he was out there looking for drug smugglers, because the Everglades border is a very well-known corridor for that kind of activity. And Andrade was doing routine surveillance, and that's when he saw the smoke. A plume of it rising from a dirt road, out in the middle of nowhere where nobody should be. So he drove toward it, and what he found, y'all, I'm going to be careful here because this is someone's son, someone's husband, someone's father, and he deserves dignity even in death. And what he found was Camilo Salazar. He'd been beaten severely. His hands were bound behind his back. Folks, he'd been harmed in ways that I'm not going to describe in detail, because some things don't need to be said out loud for you to understand. What I will tell you is this. The medical examiner later testified that Camilo was alive when these things were done to him. He did suffer, and he felt everything happening to him. And then they set him on fire. Right there on that dirt road, like he was nothing. Like 43 years of life, of love, of laughter, of that gap-toothed smile, of holding his newborn daughter, and absolutely nothing. The next day, medical examiners identified him by that damn gap-toothed smile. That gap-toothed grin that his sister said could light up a room. That's exactly how they knew it was him. Now, while Camilo was already gone, while his body was being processed by the medical examiner's office, his family, they were out looking for him. They didn't know. How could they know? And when Camilo didn't come home that evening, when his text went unanswered, when his phone went straight to voicemail, Daisy and Camilo's mother, Maria Hines, launched their own search. They drove through Miami. They checked hospitals. They checked with friends. Folks, they even looked in dumpsters. Dumpsters, y'all. A mother and a wife driving through the streets of Miami in the dark, looking in dumpsters for the man they loved. Eventually, they found his white Trailblazer, parked near Daisy's office. The driver's side window was rolled down, the keys were gone, but Camilo wasn't there. Just an empty car and a silence that screamed. A friend filed the missing person report. And within days, the terrible truth caught up with them. The body found burning near Everglades, the one the lieutenant stumbled upon while looking for drug runners, that was Camilo. That was their Camilo. I want you to think about Maria Hines for a moment. A mother who left Colombia to give her children a better life, who watched her son build something beautiful in this country, who was searching dumpsters in the dark while her son was already gone and laying on a medical examiner's table. Y'all, that's a pain that I just can't put into words. That's a grief that is like a bottomless pit. Now, the investigation moved fast once the pieces started falling into place. Now, days after Camilo's passing, Jenny Marin came forward and told police something that cracked the case wide open. Her husband, Manny MarinHe, had disappeared. He had fled the country, taken his passport, and vanished. Now, y'all, why would an innocent man run? Why would a wealthy supermarket mogul abandon his business, his family, his entire life in Miami and flee to Europe the same week his wife's lover turns up gone near the Everglades? Y'all, I kind of think the answer is obvious. And the evidence backed it up. Cell phone records placed Manny Marin and Roberto Isaac in the exact area near the Everglades where Camilo's body was found on the night of June 1st. Phone records showed extensive communication between Marin, Isaac, and Villa Perdomo in the days leading up to the crime. The plan had been coordinated across state lines. Villa Perdomo was in Las Vegas at the time, arranging the logistics by phone while training for a fight. But the biggest break came 4 years later. A fingerprint on the passenger side of Camilo's abandoned Trailblazer was finally matched to Ariel Gondula, the former MMA fighter who had helped with the abduction. That fingerprint was the key that unlocked everything. Gondula had actually fled to Vancouver, Canada, where he'd been living under the radar seeking asylum. Authorities tracked him down, and when they got him, when they sat him in that room and laid out what they had, yeah, you got it, Gondula talked. He told them everything. How he'd been recruited, how they grabbed Camilo, how he realized what was actually happening and fled the scene before the worst of it went down. He said he didn't participate in what happened at the Everglades, but he was there for the taking. He helped snatch a man off the street, and he lived with that knowledge for years. And Manny Marin, the man who ordered all this, the man whose wounded pride set this entire nightmare in motion, yeah, he ran to Europe, settled in Spain, and for 7 years, he lived as a fugitive, free, comfortable, funded. According to court documents by his own son, Ariel Marin, who allegedly helped move money to keep his father hidden. 7 years, while Daisy raised Skylar alone, while Maria Hines grieved her son, while Camilo's other daughter grew up without a father, while the people who loved him carried that weight every single day. Manny Marin was sitting in Spain, eating well, sleeping sound, living a life he didn't deserve. And finally, in August of 2018, it finally ended. Marin was arrested at the U.S. Embassy in Spain, extradited back to Miami, back to the city where he'd ordered a man's life to be taken, back to face what he'd done. Y'all, the trials, they came in waves. In September 2019, Ariel Gondula pleaded guilty to the abduction in exchange for his testimony against the others He received 36 months. Now, some would say that's not even close to being enough. But you see, his cooperation was the thread that unraveled this whole thing. And in November 2019, Roberto Isaac, the man who physically carried out the worst of it, was convicted of second-degree taking of life, conspiracy, and abduction. He was sentenced to life in prison. Now, Alexis Perdomo, the Olympic wrestler who coordinated the logistics, was convicted of conspiracy and abduction. He got 15 years. And then, finally, in March 2023, 12 years after Camilo said "see you soon" to his wife, Manny Marin stood trial. And let me tell you, the prosecution, they laid it bare. The affair, the confrontation, the wounded ego, the phone calls, the cell tower data, the hired muscle, the flight to Spain, all of it. Prosecutor Gail Levine stood before that jury and said something that I think captures the heart of this entire case. You don't get taken, harmed, and unalived in the most gruesome way because you had an affair. You know what you get in the United States of America? You get a damn divorce. But Marin, oh no, he was machismo. He was going to end Camilo. The jury found Manny Marin guilty. Manslaughter, conspiracy to commit abduction. And in May 2023, Judge Miguel de la O sentenced him to life in prison. Life. Now, y'all, if you don't know Florida law, if you get life in prison, it's guaranteed. It's automatic. It's part of the law. You do not ever get the chance of parole. Ever. So in other states, they say life in prison with the chance of parole. No, in Florida, if you get life, it's guaranteed. You're not getting a chance for parole. Now, at the sentencing, Daisy Holcomb stood before the court. 12 years of grief. 12 years of raising a daughter alone. 12 years of nightmares and unanswered questions, and that terrible echoing silence where her husband's voice used to be. You know what she said? We never got a chance to say goodbye. We didn't get a minute. We didn't get a hug. We didn't get to tell him he was loved and that he would be missed. And then she said something that'll stay with me forever. This court can't take away burning fire nightmares. It can't remove images of plastic suffocating. Think about that. 12 years and the images are still there. The nightmares are still there. The grief hasn't softened one bit. It's just become part of her, woven into who she is, woven into who Skylar is, a girl who never ever knew her daddy, who grew up knowing his face from photographs and his voice from home videos and his story from court transcripts. See you soon. He meant it. He thought he was coming back. He thought he had a lifetime of see you soons ahead of him. A lifetime of dropping Skylar off and picking her up. Birthday parties and first days of school and, you know, daddy-daughter dances. All of it. Every single moment of that future. Stolen. Because one man couldn't handle being left. Alright, I gotta be real with y'all. Camilo Salazar, man, he wasn't perfect. He made choices that truly hurt people. The affair was definitely wrong. There's no way around that. He betrayed his wife. He participated in the betrayal of another man's marriage. Those are facts. But here's really what I need you to hear. What the prosecutor said and what I believe with every fiber of my being. Nobody deserves what happened to Camilo. Nobody. Not for an affair, not for a betrayal, not for any sin short of the ones that put you in front of God himself. In this country, we have courts, we have lawyers, we have divorce papers and custody agreements and restraining orders. We have systems built for exactly this kind of pain. What we don't have, what we should never have, is a man with enough money and enough rage to hire professional fighters to take another man's life because his damn ego couldn't survive being wounded. Y'all, as a man, hey, I've experienced that. Oh my God, have I? And it hurt like hell. Those people are still walking today, breathing. I moved on. That's what you have to do. Manny Marin had every right to be angry. He had every right to be hurt. He had every right to walk away from that marriage and never look back. But he never had the right to play God. He didn't have the right to decide that Camilo Salazar's 3-week-old daughter would grow up without a father. He didn't have any right to put Maria Ines through the hell of searching dumpsters for her own son. And now he is going to spend the rest of his life in a cell, which is exactly where he belongs. Skylar Salazar is a teenager now. She's growing up in Miami, raised by a mother who loved her father and carries his memory like a flame that will never go out. She never got to know him, not really, not the way a daughter should know her daddy. Through years of bedtime stories and bad jokes and embarrassing dances in the kitchen. She knows him through photographs, through stories, through that gap-toothed smile that everybody remembers. And y'all, somewhere in Coconut Grove, the banyan trees still drape over the streets. The sun still rises angry in June. And by the way, it gets angrier in July and August. Life goes on the way it always does, relentless, indifferent, and beautiful. Man, there's a hole in that neighborhood, a space where Camilo used to be, a laugh that's gone quiet, a smile that only exists in pictures now. Y'all, he was 43 years old. He was a daddy, a son, a husband, a champion, a man who walked out of a parking lot one morning and never came back. See you soon. He never got the chance.